Hi everyone. My name is Steve, and I'm a licensed psychotherapist. And today I have a very special guest, a colleague, and he's going to be talking about exciting careers in mental health. I just want to get the word out about different people in the field, what they do, how they do it, and what they enjoy about it, things like that. So, Alec, I want you to start off just by introducing yourself real quick.
Hey, my name is Alec. I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Massachusetts in Boston. And I study school psychology. Uh, Previously, I got my master's in mental health counseling, so I'm an unlicensed psychotherapist. I'm right now gaining my hours. Um, but I did that at Hunter, and I graduated in undergrad from John Jay with my bachelor's in forensic psychology. I'm from Brooklyn. I was a Division II walk on for a few years. I'm an alpha.
Okay.
For me. Hmm, yeah, that's me.
That's good. That's good. Okay. So I heard a lot there. So you mentioned also being a mental health counselor in addition to pursuing your doctorate. So for people that don't know, we're just keeping it very basic. What's the difference between a mental health counselor and a licensed school psychologist?
Okay, so mental health, it's different. It's many different aspects. I would say mental health counseling is, more so, maintaining mental health, right? Making sure people are well. And a lot of time you would do that through psychotherapy, right? Outpatient, weekly one-on-one sessions, or in a group setting, things are very structured for that, right? In maintaining people's mental health, whether it's inpatient or outpatient private practice. So it's kind of a structure there, right? Now when it comes to school psychology, it's a range of many things, right? It's an intersect between education and mental health, right? We all have went to school or, tried to do the best we can to make sure we go to school, right? So where a school psychologist comes in is, assisting or, supporting students who may have, mental health challenges, right? In terms of getting their education. There's many of things that we do. We do psychoeducational evaluations,
Mhm.
definitely to determine disability criteria for education, which is a little different than a DSM-5 diagnosis, where we would assist in creating what, many people have heard in the education field, the individualized education plan, or, everybody knows as IEP. So we assist in that process. Depending on the need of the school, we'll support with mental health services. And again, that intersect, right? Supporting with social emotional learning, which essentially will be a course period where, students learn about their mental health. So we would assist in that. You know, school is not really the place for, um, outpatient one-on-one sessions. A lot of things are done usually in groups or classrooms, unless it's a very specialized school like a special education day therapeutic school where the population is very small and all the students can have access to those traditional mental health services. So there's a many of different things that we do, um as a school psychologist.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's awesome. So tell me about the training it takes between the two. So mental health counselor, then school psychologist.
So when I did my training, at Hunter, it was hands-on, right? Very, very much so, but more so in a clinical sense, right? You know, Building up your clinical interviewing skills, right? Your counseling micro skills, right? How to interact, how to build rapport, right? So those basic, therapeutic ideals, right, that you bring into treatment.
Hmm.
um, from my first placement, I worked in the Upward Bound program, right, where it was, educational, but I pulled students out, right. It was a Saturday program, and I practiced my therapy skills with them,
Yeah.
right. So I did that for half a semester. Then the following year, I worked in a nonprofit that supported criminalized survivors of domestic violence, right? So it wasn't a traditional outpatient either. I was able to work with the women in terms of, I would call them down and then we would do counseling sessions, right? So that was another way to, exercise my counseling skills. So I think that period was, more so learning how to interact with patients or clients or people, things of that sort. So that was the training for mental health counseling. So for psychology, school psychology, there is counseling training, but because I got a master's in mental health counseling, fortunately, a lot of my credits transferred over. So there is counseling training in school psychology. But I didn't take any of those courses, fortunately. So a lot of it is assessment based, right? So it's behavioral assessment. So we have something called the BASC, where essentially you're assessing a child's behavioral needs. You have cognitive assessment, so the Wechsler intelligence exams. So the WISC, some would call, or the Woodcock Johnson. So a lot of like psychological, assessments, for children, or learning assessments, so different things of that sort. Consultation is also a big deal in school psychology because you're servicing not only the students but the entire school system, right? So consultation is very heavy, especially when you're working with parents, when you're working with teachers, um which is a lot of what a school psychologist does. Now I think at the doctoral level is different. Now you don't need a doctorate to be a school psychologist, right? So to work in your traditional school setting, public school, is you can get that at the what they would call the specialist or master's level, right? Now, as a doctoral school psychology student, you can train other school psychologists. You can also work as a licensed psychologist, a licensed clinical psychologist, right? So beyond the school setting. You can be a professor. You can be so many different things because you have done that doctoral aspect of it, right? And consultation can go, further than the school, right? It can go to school districts, right? The PhD is research, right? So you can, analyze research and, utilize research to change school policy, right? To work with school districts. So it's a higher, it's a higher level of consultation, policy making, research, things like that.
Awesome. Okay. So it seems like, if I'm hearing you correctly, so the mental health counselor track, that's a master's level track. And then with school psychology, you could do it at the master's level, but then you have the option of going to doctoral level as well, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then mental health counseling here in New York, and I'm licensed in New Jersey as well. After the graduate training, you get your master's. We tend to do 3,000 hours of supervised training before you can be licensed. What's the difference between school psychology? Does it change at all, or what does that look like?
Yeah, so I'm doing that right now in New York. So it's very interesting, to kind of, understand and learn the mental health systems between, New York, and Massachusetts.
Right.
I would say the difference is pretty much when you are doing your, your after your postmasters, hours, it has to be, under the, vise of a, licensed professional, right? Mental health counselor, licensed clinical social worker. There's mental health counselors also by Lexicon in Massachusetts. It's a little different there, but I'm not getting my mental health counseling license there. So, but that's how it works for mental health counseling. Now, when it comes to school psychology, just like mental health counseling, it's in a different state, state requirements, but you can go and work right after,
Okay.
right? So basically you have your master's, um, and that's like, just classes and stuff like that. And then you do a year of classes with an internship. That's your specialist,
Okay.
right? And after that, you can go and work in schools. For some time, depending on the state, is how you can get your license as a licensed school psychologist. But in school psychology, a difference between certifications and licensure, you also have to take a test, right?
Okay.
So it's called the NCSP, the National School Psychologist Certification Exam.
Right.
which is also like the practice exam you have to take to get that certification as well. So it's similar. It's similar.
Yeah. Okay. So this channel is a lot about therapy. I give out these little shorts. I don't know if you see them, bro, but like I talk about like different ways of managing stress and all that kind of stuff. In terms of therapy, getting back to therapy, do you have a specific treatment modality or something that you like to go to when you're working with your clients?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Psychoanalysis,
Oh,
psychodynamic.
okay. How come?
When was it? Psych 101, probably.
Yep.
So I initially started going to school in Massachusetts for 2 years. But in Western Mass, in Springfield, Amherst area. But what stood out to me was the work of Sigmund Freud. And I think, that essentially he was the father of therapy, right? Being a neurologist, the creator of the, talking cure. And he talked about, free association and things like that. Um, Now I do believe that yes, like therapy should be free to a certain extent. This is from my work working with kids
Gotcha.
and other, types of approaches like behavioral approaches, dialectical skills, things like that. But where I lean is more so, all right, let's talk about the root, right? Let's talk about um all the, unconscious processes, right? Like what's really happening here,
Mhm.
and that's all takes time through rapport building and things like that. And I think you could do it, as long as you have the time, you can do it, right? I believe that time heals all. So if you have the access, and it doesn't really matter if it's a school, it's if it's an outpatient, if that person is there and you can access them for a long time, I think you can do that work,
Right.
right? So I lean more psychodynamically.
Okay, gotcha. Now you've mentioned a couple populations, and just from knowing you, I know you've worked, I think Rikers before. I think you worked at like you said, you worked with the children, you worked with women. What's your favorite population so far?
I don't know. I still haven't been in the field long enough. I mean, with all my training, what I've been doing it for about 5, 6 years. I started off working with people with developmental disabilities, autism, Down syndrome, things like that.
Same.
Right now I'm working with people who have obsessive compulsive disorder right now. I've worked with well, I think trauma is very pervasive, so I can say I worked with like a lot of people who've had trauma or
Yeah,
who have identified having trauma, I would say.
right.
Um, hmm, yeah, I can't tell you. I'm sorry.
Honestly,
Uh,
I think that's the hallmark of a good clinician, where it's not, I understand for marketing purposes, you got to focus on a certain area at some point, especially if you're getting into private practice. But
oh, really?
I think a good clinician will be able to appreciate all different types of populations and try to find ways to connect. Not saying that you're going to connect with everyone, but I think
Right.
that's good that, you're still young in the profession and you're trying things with different people and populations. That's great. So
Thank
let me
you.
get you this. So somebody wanted to get in the field, they probably ask, do you work a lot of hours? Like you hear other healthcare providers talking about, I work all these hours and all that kind of stuff. What about you?
Well, that's a very loaded question.
Yeah,
I would say yes, but my work varies.
right.
Now, because I practice part time, right? I'm licensed. I work with the community mental health agency doing
Mhm.
telehealth, and then I'm also a practicum student. So I also do deliver exposure response and prevention therapy treatment, and I also do psychodiagnostic assessments. So I do that as well, and I teach students, and I do all these things.
Right.
However, it's just varied for me, right? That's just specific to me. Now, observing other mental health professionals who work full time and knowing other people in the network, yeah, it is a lot of hours,
Yeah.
right? If you're working strictly clinical work or you're working strictly, providing therapeutic services, yeah,
Right.
it's a lot of hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, how does it work with therapy? Do you have like something they call it triage services, but do clients have access to if they're having a crisis in the middle of the night, would you get a call? What happens with that?
So I believe in boundary setting. Um, However, clients still need access to services, right? So usually I would connect them to the office, the organization that I'm working with, or, essentially, unfortunately, the client would have to call 911, right? And essentially do the wraparound and, check in on the client and things of that sort. Unfortunately, that has not ever really happened to me,
Hmm.
but it's something to anticipate. That's the risk of being in the field.
Gotcha. Okay, so we're coming down to the end of it. I got a few more questions, but let me ask you this. Are there any challenges you faced up until this point?
Oh yeah, being black. Yeah, being black, of course.
Not
Being,
easy.
being a black male in this field, not really, sorry, yeah, not really being understood by certain individuals or certain colleagues, right,
Hmm.
in the field, or, servicing different types of populations, right? That I say is a gift and a curse, right? Because it's like sometimes it could be a barrier in connecting, right? Or not really feeling like you're really into the work. Me, I grew up in Coney Island, Brooklyn, New York, which is not a good place, right?
Hmm.
Um, I want it to be a better place, but it's not a good place right now. And hoping to see a better future for that place, and being resilient and things of that sort. But again, that's a rough place. So, coming from that, and so many things I could say, but yeah, I think just my experience.
Yeah, one of the things I appreciate about you, Alex, I don't know if you remember one of the first few times we met, and you was telling me about your mental health journey as far as like becoming a therapist, and you said, "Man, I want to go back to Coney Island and put up like a clinic there, a private practice." And a lot of people, when they leave those environments, they're like, "Yeah, I'm trying to be out. Like, I'm not trying to go anywhere near." But you really wanted to go and give back, and that's been like a hallmark of who you are as a person. So let me ask you this: Do you have a favorite diagnosis to work with?
Hmm. Um, I don't know. That's another early career question. I work in community mental health. A lot of it is a lot of depression, anxiety, trauma,
Yeah.
right? Um, like right now specifically, I'm working with people who have obsessive compulsive disorder, which has been pretty interesting. That's a very like paradoxical disorder, right? In
Right.
its presentation, which I found to be interesting. But when I say it's a preference, probably not. I still want to see, what's out there. And I think also, I'm also very humanistic, so I don't really focus on people's diagnoses anyway.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and there's a whole like philosophy behind that. Myth of mental illness, Reddit.
Yeah.
Um, so that's why I'm like, you know. What else? I read a lot of Michelle Foucault.
Okay.
Madness. So I'm like, okay, I don't really place emphasis too much on the diagnosis. It's
Yeah.
more so treating the person for
I'm the same.
they are. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same way because it's interesting. If you look at the DSM-5, the Diagnostical and Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders, the fifth version, right? For people that don't know, which is the authority on mental health. When the average person comes in and presents to you, let's say with depression, there might be anxiety as well or traumas. Like there's so much overlap. I think it makes much more sense to view people holistically. So I could appreciate that. So let me ask you this: What's your favorite thing to do outside of mental health?
What you mean?
Favorite thing to do, a hobby.
Oh yeah, I used to play football like I mentioned before.
Okay.
So I'm a avid sports fan. Play basketball sometimes. Try to work out.
Yeah.
I play chess. I read a lot of books. A lot of I don't really read like fiction, but
Mm-hmm.
a lot of nonfiction books. Wait, hold on. Yeah, I read a lot of nonfiction books, like a lot of historical stuff, a lot of philosophy books, which I feel like also kind of impacts, my therapy and clinical skills as well.
Okay.
and really understanding where a lot of these psychological theories derive from, um, from philosophical, ideologies.
Any advice you would give to like an upcoming mental health practitioner, just somebody on the sideline saying that this seems kind of cool or seems like something I could do. I'm empathic and warm, that kind of thing, and I want to get in there. What would you tell them?
We need to, and I was talking to someone I know about this. I was like, look, we need to include the and this is I guess from a research-ish kind
Sure.
of perspective. When it comes to the, STEM, right? Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We need to include more social sciences in there,
Agree.
right? And I think that's going to be, a lot of my work in advocating for that because psychology is a social science, right? And understanding about the mind and, how people function, sociology, criminology, things of that sort. My advice is, that's a science and you can do it, right? And it opens so many pathways for people like us who've had a bad relationship with, science, right? And understanding, well, I can be a mental health counselor, right? Scientifically, and this is part of my research for my PhD, it's called phenomenology, right? The study of lived experience. By being a therapist, you are essentially a researcher, right? You are capturing the lived experiences of many people, right? And making sense of it and making meaning of it while also helping them, right? So, if you kind of look at it like that, like there it can be access to so many opportunities for people like us to heal our people, you know?
Right. Okay. So is there anything else that you wanted to share that I didn't touch on, or words of advice, wisdom, anything like that?
Follow your dreams. That's,
Volley.
that's all I can say. Follow your dreams. That's it.
Okay. So if anyone wants to get in contact with you, how would they do that?
Um, you can have me on LinkedIn. My name is Alec Hall. It's MHC-LP. So that stands for Mental Health Counselor, limited permit. Um, in other words, I'm a licensed therapist with, being supervised. Email, Alec.Hall, 001 at U, as a university, M as in Massachusetts, B as in Boston.edu.
Awesome. I appreciate you joining me. And for those of you out there, I hope you got something from this. Please subscribe, comment if you're so inclined, and I'll see you in the next one.